To log into PanelShield, the first thing you do is you go to unitedsample.com and click Login, and then you'll be logging into a client account. You'll enter in your email address and your password, log in, and you'll see PanelShield. Welcome to PanelShield, a web platform for managing data quality across multiple sample sources. To create a new project, you click Create New Project. You enter in the name of your project. You would give it a project number. You can then specify the length of the survey that you're running, what countries this survey is available in. This will allow you to eliminate any panelists who are outside of this country. You save the project, and now you can click on the second tab that says Suppliers, and now you can add new suppliers. In the drop-down list, there's a list of suppliers that are available that you can add, most of the commonly known sample suppliers, or you can choose your own name of a sample supplier. Then, instead of emailing your sample supplier a URL for the survey, you'll take that URL and you'll put it into PanelShield. I'm just using Google. Maybe here what we would do is create a web page called My First Survey or something like that. Maybe we use our Quick Surveys domain actually. And then here is the URL that you would put in if you want a panelist rejected, not allowed into a survey for any reason. So I'm going to put in here rejected.com. So this would be the supplier's rejection URL. So if the supplier would typically give you a URL that was probably called a termination or fail out URL, term out URL, this would be that where you'd put that. You add the supplier. They have now been added. Now if I wanted to add a second supplier, then you can go through and choose another supplier. Let's say in this case maybe it'll be United Sample, and the URL would be Google again, and the rejection URL will automatically be repopulated in case there was a URL there before. So now we have two suppliers added, My Sample Supplier and United Sample. And this URL here that shows up, it says URL for supplier. This is the URL that you actually give to your sample supplier. And if we take that URL and put it into a new browser window, on the end of that URL, the sample supplier can append their own member tracking data. So here on the end, I'm going to put my members ID here. You click the link and you're taken off to Google. So each time I click this link, I'm being taken off to Google. And if I go to my stats, you'll see that there have been 2 clicks into the survey. There have been 2 people that were allowed through to the survey, which is at Google. And down here you have a breakdown by supplier as to how many clicks they delivered. So My Sample Supplier 1 delivered 2 clicks. United Sample has not delivered any activity yet. Now I can go to my control panel, and before I launch this survey, I can control what settings I want to set up that are specific for this project. I can limit the number of times a panelist can click into a survey. I can reject a panelist if he exists or belongs to more than a certain number of suppliers' panel sites. I can reject a panelist who has completed the survey through another supplier. We can turn on geographic IP protection, which allows you to restrict and track which users are coming from what countries. I can reject a panelist who is hiding behind what's called a suspicious proxy server. And a suspicious proxy server is a way for a panelist to spoof a web server into thinking that this person is in a certain country when they're actually residing in a different country. You can reject a panelist if they become a professional, and you can define a professional however you wish. Someone who takes a certain number of surveys within a certain number of days or weeks or months from your surveys or from the global database of United Sample of surveys that are being run by PanelShield. And you can classify a panelist as a speeder if they take a survey within a certain percentage of the actual survey. So this survey we had set up was 15 minutes long, and if a panelist takes the survey in under 7.5 minutes, which is 50%, then that user will be classified as a speeder. Keeping all of these items unchecked means that PanelShield will run in silent mode, and every time a user clicks into a survey link, they will be taken to the survey, which in this case is Google. If I start turning on switches, then this will reject a panelist if they meet certain criteria. Now, PanelShield is still monitoring whether a person has exceeded certain thresholds set here. Even if you uncheck all of these items, PanelShield is still monitoring panelists going in. So, for example, if I go back to my Stats tab, you'll now see that I have 3 clicks and 3 were allowed. And if I download the transaction log for this project, and I open it up, we will see each row represents an individual click into the survey, and each row gets its own status code. And the first click in gave me a status code of 2, which said I belong to multiple panel accounts. The third click told me that I had a status code. Second click told me that I had a status code of 1 and 2, which means I exceeded the maximum number of clicks and I belong to multiple panel accounts. And the fourth time I got a status code of 2, 1 and 2, which was the same. Now if I go back to my survey and I change this from being a United States survey to a Canadian survey and save the project, and then try and click into the survey again, I'm still going to go off to Google, but under my Stats tab, when I review this transaction log again, this time you'll see that my fourth click has a status code of 1, 2, and 4. 4 means I was a GeoIP violator, which means I was actually in the United States, but this survey was now set up for only people in Canada, and therefore I shouldn't have been allowed through into the actual survey, or I shouldn't have been allowed to participate. If I go back to my control panel and I flip on the switch for geographic IP protection and save it, and now I try to go into the survey again, this time I'm actually going to be rejected to the website of www.rejected.com. Because PanelShield now blocked me from getting into the survey because the survey was specific for people in Canada and I happen to be in the United States. So turning on these checkboxes will reject a panelist when they don't meet the criteria that you're looking for. That's essentially how PanelShield works. I was able to create a project within minutes, get it set up. There was no technical integration required, and now I can manage data quality in a very easy way using PanelShield.